What weird flex you proud of? I got a pity pat from Obama. This was ages ago when he was still just a senator from Illinois. I got a job at a local radio station as a reporter for news in the area. Obama was speaking at a community college in our area, and I was told to listen to his address and ask relevant questions afterwards. I had never done that before, or since, and I barely listened, and at the end he met with the press, which was me, and a local newspaper guy. After he finished with the other guy, he looks at me and says, "What can I do for you?" My mind went totally blank and I just stood there staring at him. This went on for a little too long, and eventually he reaches out a hand, pats me gently on the shoulder and goes, "It's okay." And then walked off. Lol. In the 1980s, there used to be a small ad every week in the back pages of the UK actors magazine The Stage, for a guy called David Burglas. It was just his silhouette, his name, his agent's phone number and the caption, "International Man of Mystery." The simple genius of it was so giddying that I felt compelled to steal it when I wrote the program notes for one of the performers in a student comedy show I directed. Another performer in that show was a guy called Neil Malarkey, who went on to form a double act with a young Canadian comedian called Mike Myers. He and Mike both loved that phrase, but neither of them knew where I'd got it from, so Mike just stole it again. Decades later, I got in touch with David Burglas, then aged 90, via his son, and apologized for nicking it. He got back to say, he was delighted to find out how Mike Myers had come by that phrase, and told me I'm forgiven. He's still alive today, and nearly 100 years old. Burglas was a truly great magician, a huge star of British TV in the 50s and 60s, and deserves acknowledgement for that brilliant strapline. I'm also sheepishly proud of my part in the chain of theft that led to Austin Powers. Went to Venice for 4 days, bought a 7-day public transport pass, because they only had 1, 3 or 7-day passes. Prices for 3+1 days and a 7-day pass is the same. End of the trip before leaving for airport, stood at the central station and sold the remaining days at half price to a couple who were starting their vacation in Venice. Both of us ended up saving money, smiley face. Edit. Wow. This blew up. I see a lot of comments about giving it away for free or me being cheap about it. Well, I sold it for less than half the price of what it would have cost the couple to buy new tickets for 3 days. I only got back like a day's money back. And no, I would not give it away for free, because I would not accept a ticket for free if someone gave it to me. I would pay something. And also they were prepared to pay the original amount. And I would rather give away free stuff to the homeless, which I have done numerous times before, instead of giving it away to someone who can clearly afford it. And they were extremely happy at the end of it to save more than €50. But to each their own, relieved face. I have an uncanny knack for remembering people, even people that I see very briefly. For example, I once saw a guy on the escalator in Toronto and I said, "Hey, when did you move here from Vienna?" He was flabbergasted. I had walked past him on the street once while visiting there, and 5 years later I recognized him. Life mystery possibly solved. When I was a kid, a teenager stopped me and said, "Hey, you were at the monster truck rally last year." I had no idea who this person was and just denied it because I thought he thought I was someone else. He said, "No, I remember you were there with your dad and you were wearing an ALF for President t-shirt." I should mention that I lived in a metro area of 2 million people, and this truck rally was in a 20,000 person arena that was 30 minutes away from where I lived. I was at that event with my dad, and while I do not remember what I wore to it, I was the proud owner of an ALF for President t-shirt, so it would have been a possible wardrobe choice that night. I was never able to understand how he remembered me or those other details, especially because neither my dad nor I had any significant conversations with anyone there. I bet that guy was one of these types of people. Wow. I'm a psychiatric nurse, and I saved a man's life when he collapsed outside my apartment. It was during the height of COVID. I could hear people shouting, and I looked out the window to the scene of a man face down on the road and people standing around him in a panic. I shoved my PPE equipment on, I keep some at home for cleaning, and ran downstairs in my pajamas, no socks or shoes on. He wasn't breathing and had a massive cut on his head so deep you could see his skull. Nobody knew how long he was in cardiac arrest for. I managed to get his heart going again by myself. I had so much adrenaline going, and when the paramedics came I gave them the full handover as they took him away. The paramedics took my details in case the hospital wanted to contact me. A week later, I got a phone call from the man and his wife to say thank you for saving his life, and if I ever needed anything they would help me. After he went away in the ambulance and the adrenaline wore off, I cried my eyes out, praying he would be okay. I still think about him regularly and feel very proud of myself. Update, you lovely, lovely people. Thank you so much for your kind words and for the awards. I'm not ashamed to admit I have cried as I read your comments. It's so nice to be appreciated by people. I also wanted to add in that if I had broken any of the man's ribs, I'm not 100% sure if he could or would have sued me as I was off duty. I would like to think that if another medical professional had driven past they would have done the same as me. Once again thank you for your comments. Black Heart. I have finished 3 full tubes of chapstick in my life. Not lost or missing. Finished to the end. Okay, I am not taking this win from you. Amazing. But you reminded me of a quirk my friend had. She was obsessed with a very specific flavor of a chapstick brand popular back in high school. She needed this stuff all day. Had it on her, in her car, in her purse and one bedside at all times. The company ended the flavor. She called the head office and convinced them how important this stuff was. They agreed to sell her a literal pallet of the stuff. Boxes and boxes. I really need to message her and ask how her stash is doing. God, what happens when that runs out? I don't think that company exists anymore. Edit, we had a lovely chat, and she was very open about her chapstick journey. So she's down to a handful left, but she apparently moved on to those spherical EOS ones ages ago now and prefers very subtle scents, and has a couple flavors now. She also just keeps one at a time. Maybe it was something she decided to dial back deliberately or got sick of finally, but that's her story to tell. For those who asked, it was kiwi flavor, green heart, kiwi, green heart. It's been fantastic reading everyone's replies and DMs, and seeing similar stories to hers. She's such an awesome human being, and I never would have thought I'd get so much attention just chatting about a fond memory I have of her from our younger days. We're firmly mid-30s now, but I'll show her this thread. I won a race on my local dirt track with my normal everyday car. Most people initially thought my car didn't have a chance to win since it was just a 4-cylinder. But after it won, lots of people cried about it having such a huge advantage because it's all-wheel drive. I followed the rules, not my fault they let me bring a gun 4-cylinder turbo AWD, to a knife V8 RWD, fight just because most people locally like knives. I've been at my job for 1.5 years. I started at the shit end, overnight shift, 3 nights a week. 6 months ago, I was promoted to shift supervisor. Last week, I was promoted to store leader. I have worked minimum wage and dead-end jobs my whole life. I am super proud of myself. American here. I was woken up by police in the middle of the night and escorted out of a country for my safety after slapping a Tunisian general in the face after he gave a Nazi salute to my East German housemate and made her cry. I need more details. This is like the background to an action thriller. I was at a language immersion university in Italy for an independent study semester abroad. My housing fell through and I wound up with a 17-year-old girl from East 1 Germany as a roommate. I was 24, so kinda felt protective of her. She was being exploited at a restaurant for the summer and sending money home. I was out day drinking with this general guy and a couple of his subordinates. We were pretty fucked up. It was reckless. My roommate came home. I introduced them. He hailed Hitler. She burst into tears. I slapped him. He and his buddies left. At about 1 to 2 a.m., when my roommate was still at work, the police pounded on my door. I had to register my presence with local police on arrival in town, told me I had 5 minutes to grab my things. There was rumor of a credible death threat against me and they were escorting me to the train station and watching me get on a train out of Italy. That's what I did. I have died 5 times due to allergic reactions. No breathing, no heartbeat, unresponsive. Always been brought back. The longest I was gone was roughly 3 to 4 minutes. Whoa, how did it feel if you don't mind me asking? Not the fella above, but I recently had a severe asthma attack, blacked out on the phone with 911 trying to stumble outside to meet the ambulance, and woke up in the hospital. I was told that I was extremely close to dying. Waking up from that was the most disorienting and confusing sensation of my life. The first thing I remember was feeling heavy. So extremely heavy. I was desperate to sit up, but I didn't know why. My arms wouldn't obey me, but I was fighting to use them to prop my torso up. It would take me a while before I realized where I was. I fought against my own body for what felt like an hour. I remember seeing, but not processing the meaning behind anything in my field of view. It felt blurry and suppressed. I was terrified, but I didn't know why. After a while of fighting like this, I felt a bit of strength return to my arms. I was able to get one arm at the right angle behind me to begin lifting myself up. I felt like I was lifting weights and pushing through against all odds. First an elbow, then 2, then lifting up with a hand, locking my elbow straight, then both. I felt alert, but I was scared and confused. I had no idea about anything. I wasn't even really there yet. It was all desperate need, bright lights, and confusion. Then I started processing sounds. It was loud. I suddenly felt guilty for some reason. I felt motion all around me, frantic motion, but I was stationary. I finally realized my eyes were seeing. I tried to understand what was going on around me. Wait, those sounds are voices. Those are people. Who are they? That image I'm seeing. That is a face. I don't recognize this person. Where am I? What happened? Oh, I don't feel well. I'm nauseous. Dizzy? Exhausted? Oh. I'm me? I'm a person. My sense of self was back. This person is pressing on my chest, telling me I need to lay back down. Oh, they're doctors. She was a nurse. They're trying to take my vitals. I'm making it harder. They're asking me questions. They'll save me? I have to do my best to answer, so that they can do their best. I have to try my hardest to remember, and to give complete answers, leaving nothing out. My name. Yes, Mom, I remember it. My age. I remember that, too. Where am I? A hospital, right. Do I know what happened? Oh, an asthma attack. What medications do I take? There's a lot of them. I'll do my best to answer, Mom. No, wait, that wasn't all of them. I have to give you the whole list. I have to do my best. It went on like that for a while. I finally looked at the room's clock and realized it had been an hour and 20 minutes since I told my IRL friends on Discord I was having trouble breathing and was AFKing. I was still confused, but the doctors and nurses had largely finished their work and were leaving me alone more and more often. I flagged one down, singular, in my mission to contact my loved ones and let them know I was okay. She tried to tell me to wait a while. I was dedicated. I made demands. She put me in my place. I apologized. There were other patients. Of course there were. I laid back in the bed. Eventually, they brought me a phone. I got a hold of my loved ones. They had already called around and found me. One was on the way. Everything was okay. Edit, thank you for the gold. Ask me anything. Edit 2, here's more of the story from further down in the comments. So weird, just like your commitment to sitting up for no reason. Was that your only bad reaction? Yeah, I pondered on that urge at length while I was in the hospital recovering. Struck a chord that TV shows depicting similar events show the same thing. I wonder why we have such an urge to sit up. Must be some sort of primal self-preservation instinct. Who knows? And well, no. That wasn't the only reaction. I didn't cover anything pre-blackout. That was uniquely terrifying. Like I mentioned in a comment here somewhere, this is not the first time I've had to call 911 due to my negligence. I was just used to getting a breathing treatment in the ambulance and then being okay. Granted, every time I let that happen it was certainly scary. But something was different this last time. I tried to nebulize, but it wasn't working well. I decided to maybe steam up the bathroom, but almost immediately realized that was a bad idea, because it wasn't mucus causing the issue, like I normally get. My lungs were actually closing. I started panicking, a brand new kind of panic. Instantly called 911. Threw on some slippers, grabbed my keys and left my apartment. I remember closing the door behind me and thinking that locking the door would take too much time. That I am running out of time fast. I focused on controlling my breathing, as I was only able to get short, shallow breaths. I was speaking to the 911 operator in short 3 to 4 word bursts between breaths. My apartment building is one of those rarer kinds where there is a magnetically locking exterior door, with an interior hallway where all the apartment doors are. It also has an elevator, and I am on the 2nd floor. It was after hours, so I knew that exterior door was locked. Even if EMS got here in time to save my life, if I were not past that door, they would not be able to get to me. I would die. That realization set in as I was walking out my door. I had minutes before I potentially ran out of oxygen and lost consciousness. I already felt my extremities tingling. I focused on giving my full address to the 911 operator, ensuring she heard it clearly and got all the details. It was a struggle to speak, to gasp for air, and to also try to slow my breathing. After a point, when she told me to stay on the line and EMS were on their way and would arrive in minutes, the terror set in. I remember exiting the elevator on the bottom floor, and turning the corner to what at the time looked like the longest hallway in the world. In reality, it's about 150 feet. But in that moment, it looked like a tomb. I started repeating breath, just so, breath, scared mom. Breath, I'm just, breath, so scared. I remember pressing on the push to open bar on the first of the doors. I do not remember pressing the second one. The one that was locked. I found out later on that another resident had found me. And also called 911. I don't know if they found me inside that outer door, or on the concrete outside, but I was unconscious. They stayed with me until EMS arrived a couple minutes later. I was told that my airway had completely constricted when EMS arrived. I wish I knew who that other resident was so I could thank them. I'm glad I got to thank the EMS who saved me, though. I made a meme on a small subreddit and a couple hours later my buddy sent me my own meme not knowing I made it. When I was in law school, I prepped a course outline for first-year property law that was really, really good. I shared it with one person and asked him not to share. About a week later, I start hearing about this awesome outline everyone had and how well it was written and covered all the necessary material. Ask around and finally get my hands on it. It was my fucking outline. Called my buddy out on it and he tried to say he didn't share it. He folded when I told him he was the only person I shared it with. In his defense, it was a damn good outline. I ended up getting the highest score in that class that the professor ever gave. My outline got in his hands, and he made it an official part of his course syllabus. 20 years later I specialize in real property law and still stay in touch with that professor. Dr. Jerry Baer, Texas Tech Law School. Best damn law school professor I ever had. I am legitimately jealous of people who just have nice handwriting. And I know many people will say all you have to do is practice, and yes, I'm aware I can improve my own handwriting. But that doesn't explain how some children have significantly better handwriting than others. It is certainly an innate skill. I've taught some students in university, who actually had typewriter-like writing, and I adored grading their papers/lab reports. Funnily enough, I think all of the students I've had who had very good handwriting were in at least the top 3/4 of their class. The few I can think of by name currently were at the top, if not the actual top of their class, but I'm sure there are outliers. Edit, top 1/4 not 3/4s. In my experience good handwriting equals smarter student, but bad handwriting does not equals bad student. I have terrible handwriting, and I have a PhD.
Hey there, fantasy fans. If you're looking for an epic listen, you have to check out Rosamund Pike's narration of the Wheel of Time audiobook. Rosamund Pike brings so much life to Robert Jordan's world. Her performance adds an extra layer of depth to the characters, making the story even more immersive. Whether it's her portrayal of the fearless Aes Sedai or the intense magical battles, she nails it. It's like experiencing the Wheel of Time in a whole new way. And here's the best part. You can get it for free with Audible's 30-day trial of Audible Plus. You'll get access to this incredible audiobook and more, completely free for a month. So if you're ready to dive into this massive fantasy world, this is the perfect way to start. Don't miss out. Check the link below and start your journey today. 100% free for qualifying people. Completely free. Click the link.
I can play Dr. Feelgood front to back on guitar pretty much note for note. I learned it as a teenager and every year or two I'll put it on to see if I still remember everything. Did it again a few weeks ago and still have it down lol. Edit, the whole album, not just the song. There were 2 positions coming up for promotion at my work, and 3 of us applied. My 2 colleagues got hired, which left me as the losing candidate. So I used this as a fire under my ass and applied for another job. Only issue is, the job had a brutal test interview which was 4 hours of memory recall, alphanumeric, and other testing, including math by hand, etc. It was on a Saturday at noon. But I worked until 8:30 am on Saturday, a night shift, punched in 11:45 p.m. the night before. So I worked my night shift, went home, slept for 45 minutes, showered, shaved, put on a suit, down a triple espresso from Starbucks, went to the interview sleep deprived, but I wanted out of my old job, so bad I decided failure wasn't an option. I tested 79 WPM typing speed, I can do better, but I was up all night, and 100% memory recall. I got the job and gave my notice at my old job soon thereafter. My Dungeons & Dragons campaign was recently voted as Campaign of the Month on a website that lets you build wikis for your campaign lore and adventure recaps. All that's left is to win Campaign of the Year, and I'll put it on my LinkedIn. Man, it's such a flex to be known as a good DM. I went through a drive-through yesterday and the kid working the window recognized me from a campaign I ran over 10 years ago. Said, "Hey, you're that guy that used to DM at the college. Best campaigns I've ever been in." Made me feel invincible. I have a sock drawer that's 72 of the same exact sock. I never have to fold them or dig around to make a matching pair. This is actually the best life pro tip. Every couple years I'll do a sock purge and throw away or donate 100% of my socks. You can donate to humane societies sometimes if they need socks for various reasons. I then buy like 48 pairs of the same socks. Over time you get gifted socks for Christmas or buy a random pack for some reason and your uniformity gets diluted. Hence the purge every couple years. Also, musical notes, black socks. They never get dirty. The longer you wear them, the stronger they get. Sometimes I think I should wash them, but something inside me keeps saying not yet, not yet, not yet. Musical notes. I know a lot about old Volkswagens. And many other old cars. So much so that people have labeled it as creepy or almost scary. When I am out driving, I often remember specific cars I have met randomly or seen parked along the way. Some of them were almost 30 years ago, but the memories stick. At the same time, I cannot remember what I did yesterday. I was a champion at the game Hot Hands. The way we played it was about 10 people in a circle stack their hands on each other's. The person with their hand at the bottom takes it out and slams it down with the flat of their palm as hard as they can onto the top of stack. You lose if you pull your hand out or give up. I was great at it because I'm a volleyball player, but also because I'm dead inside. My academic extremes are nearly unprecedented, I imagine. I was suspended 3 times at a state school, lowest GPA, 0.17, suspended 6 months, 1 year, and then 5 years, and later got a doctorate from MIT. I've never heard of a recovery from similar academic depths. I can wake up without an alarm clock unless I am horribly drunk the night before. Even then sometimes it works. All I do is tell myself when I have to wake up, and just like that my eyes open 5/7 minutes before. I have assumed the role of an alarm for a friend/roommate lot of times for this reason, and I am absolutely fucking proud of it. P.S. I am also a super light sleeper. My friend and I got stopped by the police as 16-years because they'd set up a speed trap on a hill and they'd caught us going 44 miles per hour down the hill on bikes in a 30 zone. They didn't give us any repercussions, just had a long chat with us about safety. I can't say we didn't need it. We still joke about that Vauxhall Corsa flashing its lights behind us asking us to pull over, haha. Last year in 6th form my friend and I rickrolled the whole school end-of-year assembly with a memory stick plugged into the stage sound desk. When I was helping set up the mics for the drama students a few months prior, I'd noticed it was the same sound desk as the one my dad uses, meaning I knew it had a built-in delay function and the ability to load audio files from a USB stick. We snuck up half an hour before the assembly and planted the stick in the back set to trigger in 32 minutes. It was the best prank we ever pulled, didn't even get found out, planning on claiming responsibility once we finish with exams this year. In Amsterdam, I had some goods left over while there on holiday. I walked around for half an hour looking for the right person, just walked up to them and just said, "Hey mate, I've got a plane in a few hours, here you go," and handed over what I had left, which wasn't a little. He couldn't believe his eyes. I did it because it had happened to me 2 days prior while camping on the outskirts of Amsterdam at Camping Zeeburg. A Russian man who was camped nearby gave me his leftovers before leaving. And the moral of the story is to pass it on. I've smoked gravity bongs in the Atlantic, the Pacific, the North Sea, the Baltic Sea, the Irish Sea, the Mediterranean, Lake Como, and many rivers and lakes in Germany. My brothers and I once made a gravity bong and took it down to the lake. To test it out, we pulled a cigarette through just to see what would happen. It was a thick yellow/grey cloud and we were admiring how gross it was. Then without giving any warning, one of M, the one with asthma, grabbed it and took the whole cigarette in one hit. I thought he was going to die, but he was okay, after an hour or so. I was the origin of what is now an integral part of the pre-show at Rock and Roller Coaster at Disney Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World Resort. Back in 2007, I was working extra magic hours at Coaster. I was working the Studio C position, just ushering guests through to the load area. Normally, we were just supposed to shut up outside of telling guests to fill all available space. I had been working a long shift, and had gotten so fed up with work that I was blowing off steam by hamming up the show a bit, excitedly welcoming guests in, just being extra. The band's agent enters, informing them they have to leave to get to a show across town. Boomer, hey, you guys can't leave. Your fans just got here. Band agrees. Agent, what do you expect me to do? Send them all with you. Boomer, yeah. And how about some backstage passes, too? Steven Tyler, wait a minute. I love that idea. How about some backstage passes? The guests ate it up. I started doing the bit every show, and it made an exhausting shift into a fun one. And I did it every shift after that. Management actually told us not to do it during a track talk one night. You shouldn't distract from the talent. F the man, I still did it. And my fellow cast members started doing it too. Now they train cast members to do it. YouTube documentaries about the ride mention it specifically. I smile like a big dumb idiot every time I go on the ride and hear that bit. It really increases the immersion and makes the pre-show that much better. I'm a nurse, but hear me out. I saved the life of my brother when he came home pissed drunk and laid in bed on his back. And I saved a life of a patient while I was a patient myself by pulling them on their side, too, while they had a seizure. Ike. Pretty sure it's gonna happen again, soon. When I first started practicing law, I had a client who had been mischarged with a misdemeanor that should have been upgraded to a felony. The state just never looked at it very hard despite a reputation for being extremely aggressive. I walked in, got my case called, and entered a blind plea with my client's consent. The judge accepted the plea, gave my guy the minimum sentence. Instead of getting years, plural, in prison, my guy did 30 days with day-for-day credit and credit for 2 days based on his arrest being at 11 p.m., and released at 12:15 am. My guy ended up doing 12 days in county. He was facing a minimum of 1 year in prison if they had upgraded the charge, and they had the guy dead to rights. I literally had veteran attorneys come up to me after court asking me how I figured that out. One time when I was on holidays, I went to a German restaurant and got 2 schnitzel. When they came out, it turned out each schnitzel was larger than my head and it came with a load of chips. I didn't even think about it and just started eating. By the time I was done, the server came out and said that I was probably the only person since the restaurant first opened to have eaten 2 schnitzel, and that she has seen men twice my size unable to stomach 2. I was about 14 or 13 at the time, so now I am just imagining these giant men going to the restaurant and failing to eat 2 just for the server to come up and say that a 13-year-old managed to eat more than them. Due to the weirdness of pandemic times, I can remove the little metal bar from the noses of surgical masks quicker than probably anyone in the whole hospital, possibly the whole state. I need to remove them so patients won't use them for self-harm. In case you're like, why you fucking up those masks? Survived 5 years as a child, illegally imprisoned, tortured and raped. Out of all of us, this happened too. I'm the only one never to back down. I'm now 45, and the people who did this work with children in England. It's the woman and Hendon John. She was the former deputy head of Lay Cheen on the island of Jersey. I made a series of short videos about it on TikTok. I'm being blacklisted and have had 4 YouTube channels removed due to this. I didn't back down when I was 10. Why do they think I'll back down now? That's my flex. I went through hell and came out swinging, and I haven't stopped yet. I memorized the first 100 digits of pi. We have a competition at work to win PTO on March 14th every year on how many digits you can get correct. I work at an IT company. The developers would always win. One year someone memorized 284 digits. It blew my mind. The next year he got to 356, he left the company but still holds the record. There's a pic of him in the break room holding up a trophy and his high score, but we all work from home now, so the pic is probably gone now. We also pay $10 on Pi Day to pie our managers in the face and goes to whatever charity we request. Sometimes I miss the office days. My solo band project is named after a man who was called the Orchid Thief. There is a best-selling book from Susan Orlean about him, and also a movie adaptation where he is portrayed by Nicolas Cage. After releasing my first album, the third comment on Facebook was from the actual real Orchid Thief, who approved my music and said, "You rock, man." Felt surreal but quite nice. The song Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin has a very unique hissing sound from the tape recorder at the beginning just before the music starts. I remember being a teenager 25 years ago and listening to the song over and over and fantasizing that someday I'd be in a situation where I could identify the song just from that tape hiss and impress everyone. 25 years later, Hurdle is a cultural phenomenon, and, sure enough, one day the Hurdle song is Immigrant Song, and the first 1-second clip is just the tape hiss at the beginning before the song starts. I correctly guessed the song from just the tape hiss, greatly impressing my GF and friends, and have never been prouder of anything I've ever done in my whole life. I'm happy. Every time someone tries to flex on me, I just internally am like, but are you happy though? Like, don't get me wrong, stuff is still stressful sometimes, but homie is glad to wake up, and I couldn't always say that. For me, that's the biggest W I could get. I got my braces off 7 years ago and I've worn my retainer every night since. Can't say I blame you. I'm 36 and got mine off a couple years ago. Yes, adult braces, fun. I wear mine every night too. I refuse to lose what I suffered through and paid for. Edit, typo. Had braces for 6 years and some kind of appliance to widen my mouth for another 4. Had 10 teeth pulled. Finally finished everything just before I left for college. IDK if I'm just irresponsible or if I was just burnt out from it all, but I didn't wear my retainer more than a few dozen times before I lost it. I've been lucky since, nothing has drifted enough to really notice, but now I actually have to, and do, wear a mouth guard for grinding my teeth. Also 36. LinkedIn used to email you to say congratulations to somebody. The email always said say congrats. 2, name, for something. And there would be a link that would take you to a message box. The message box had automatic suggestions with a drop-down, and I created a company in LinkedIn called Congrats. So when people started to type in congrats, they were told to buy LinkedIn. That company I created would appear right there for you in a drop-down, and inevitably people would select it and create a link to that company page. For a couple years I was getting hundreds of clicks a day to congrats. Edit, typo. I bought the 2 first books of A Song of Ice and Fire from a dude in 1999 I met on Usenet. Couldn't find them in a bookstore. He said he had cases of them in his basement. And if I wanted them autographed. It was GRRM himself, and way before they got popular. Edit, some people have doubted this story and I promised to take a photo of the books, found only the first one, with a note of the username, to differentiate from other picture on internet. Ever so seldom, cute things really happen.
Hey adventurers and fellow Redditors, are you tired of hearing the same old battle music during your D&D sessions? Or just looking for the perfect soundtrack for your next epic quest? Well, let me introduce you to Amazon Music Unlimited. With Amazon Music Unlimited, you get access to over 100 million songs, ad-free. That means whether you need an intense combat playlist, relaxing tunes for a tavern scene, or just something to vibe to while scrolling Reddit, we've got you covered. And it's not just about music, there are thousands of podcasts too. So if you need a break between campaigns, you can catch up on your favorite shows. Plus, there's the best part. If you sign up today, you can try it free for 30 days. No commitment, no hassle, just endless music and podcasts tailored to your taste. So whether you're crafting your next D&D campaign, painting minis, or just chilling with your party, make your soundtrack legendary with Amazon Music Unlimited. Hit the link below and start your free trial now because every adventure needs a killer soundtrack.